Joining us now, Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. He is the author of Chaos Under Heaven, Trump, Xi, and the Battle for the 21st Century. So first, Josh, if I can, to the significance of this, I mean, you do have two fundamentally different views here, right? That this is an escalation, both in terms of China's capabilities, but also its willingness to challenge the U.S. on its soil. And the other view, as you heard from President Biden, that this is not a significant jump beyond what it and other countries already do. What's your view?
Right. Well, it's very clear, Jim, that the Biden administration is working hard to downplay this incident because they want to resume their previously pursued path of warming U.S.-China relations, and they want to get the visit back on track, and they want to minimize the impact of this crisis. But their statements deserve some scrutiny. I mean, for example, how can they say that Xi Jinping may have known? The other way to say that is that he may have not known, or in other words, they don't know. Okay, so we have to admit that we just don't know. And in the end, it doesn't matter because he's responsible for what his military does. And the second thing that I find a little bit troubling with the Biden administration's message on this, frankly, is that the message that, we're pretty sure they didn't get anything good. But as Natasha just expertly pointed out, most of the thing is still at the bottom of the ocean. So how can they say that? And the third thing that I think is really a little problematic, and this is where they're getting a lot of flack on the Hill, is that they say they waited 10 days to shoot it down so they could aid recovery efforts. Well, again, the things at the bottom of the ocean, most of it, they got the nylon but not the electronics. So there's one part of this where you have to just have a heavy grain of salt. The other part is that,
But before we, a lot to digest there. I mean, one thing they do say is they didn't want this thing falling on people's homes, on the soil, and they were able to jam some of these capabilities, but still an open question. I do want to ask you about this initial assessment as described of Xi's knowledge of this. Xi has exercised more control over the People's Liberation Army as he's consolidated power in China, extended his term, president for life, etc. Is it plausible to you that the PLA would, in effect, defy the Chinese president and do this as something of a freelance operation?
No, it's much less likely that somebody went rogue in the Chinese military. In that system, that would mean jail or death or worse. Now, of course, it's possible that Xi Jinping is not tracking every balloon from his presidential conclave, but the bottom line is that he initiated this program. It's an expansive program. It's not just one balloon. It's dozens of balloons covering dozens of countries in 5 continents. And there's a reason that he's doing that is because he's weaponizing near space. This is the important part. This is the part that we have to focus on after the crisis. It's above where the planes go, but below where the satellites go. And that's a vulnerable space for us because, as we saw, we don't really have a lot of good capabilities to deal with it. So even if they're doing the same thing as the satellites, they're doing it in a different area. And while we have a lot of stuff to deal with satellites, we don't have a lot of stuff to deal with balloons, as we just found out. And that's part of Xi's plan to expand Chinese military capabilities and spy on us and prepare for an invasion of Taiwan that we can't thwart because if we put down all the satellites, they'll have a bunch of balloons flying around.
Yeah, that's a genuine risk. Now, it does appear that the Biden administration does not want to blow up U.S.-China relations over this, but it was also our understanding that China wanted this summit with Antony Blinken, that they want to revive their economy post-COVID. What happens to that meeting? Does it come to be?
Right. Well, it just shows you how fragile this reset is. I mean, the Chinese have an interest in a reset. We have an interest in a reset, but nobody wants to blink. Nobody wants to back down. So any little thing can have a dangerous dilatory effect. Now, of course, this meeting will be rescheduled, and they'll make another attempt. But again, if the relationship is so fragile that a balloon can fracture it, you have to ask yourself, well, aren't there bigger problems in the U.S.-China relationship than balloons? And we can have a meeting. The meetings are fine. Diplomacy is good necessarily, but there's no willingness on the Chinese side to address the real concerns of the international community about its behavior. We're talking about the military expansion, the genocide, the internal repression, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Tibet, the Uyghurs, all of it. So, yeah, I'm sure the Chinese want a meeting, but they haven't shown any willingness to actually do the things that they would need to do to improve the atmosphere so that we could actually avoid the Cold War and have peace and harmony in the 21st century.
They got far bigger fish to fry from their perspective. Josh Rogin, thanks so much.
Anytime.